On 7th October 2021, after 14 years as owner, retail businessman Mike Ashley sold Newcastle United Football Club to a new consortium for a reported £305 million. The consortium was made up of Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, RB Sports and Media, and PCP Capital Partners. But the biggest stakeholders of this consortium were the PIF, literally Saudi Arabia. Overnight, Newcastle United went from having a penny pinching owner who was hated by many fans to having the richest owner in world football. Newcastle United's recent history has become synonymous with Saudi Arabia's sudden, extremely expensive investment in the game. And while it's unfair to say the money is the only reason for the success Eddie Howe has brought to Tyneside, there's no denying it's a huge part of it. For the fans, this has undeniably been a blessing. Their club is back in the big leagues, competing for trophies. They'll tell you they don't care who the owner is, as long as the prosperity continues. But is it ever that simple? Can you truly turn a blind eye to the people running your club? And will this ownership always be a stain on the club's name? Before we dive into the core issue, let's establish a few things. This discussion takes nothing away from the wonderful and talented team and staff at Newcastle United. Nor am I blaming the dedicated fans for supporting their club regardless of the owners. Unfortunately, they are not in control of who buys or sells the club they support. Furthermore, I don't believe supporters who genuinely welcome the Saudi ownership for the success it has brought should also be blamed. However, their enthusiasm for success should never be seen as an argument for defending or ignoring Saudi Arabia's well-documented human rights violations. The two issues must be kept separate. So let's begin. The core of the dilemma lies in Saudi Arabia's truly horrible human rights record. The world is familiar with allegations of the state allegedly killing journalists, their systematic lack of women's rights, and the notorious kafala system, which effectively enslaves migrant workers by seizing their passports and trapping them. The question facing every fan, pundit, and moral observer is simple. Would you take such a nefarious ownership regime if this brings success? While it's true that other football club owners are not saints, Saudi Arabia's human rights violations are so plentiful, widely known, and high profile that they occupy a different moral category. While success is the ultimate goal, that kind of prosperity achieved at this cost leaves a profound and difficult sour taste for many. It is precisely because of this documented record that the entire operation at Newcastle United has been labelled sports washing. The influence of the new ownership is now evident on and off the pitch, leading to what many call the Saudification of the club. We see it every year with the controversial green and white away kits, which are a blatant echo of the Saudi national team colours, a choice that constantly provokes criticism. We see it with the Saudi sponsors who are suddenly attaching themselves to the club. This entire operation is the textbook definition of using the global appeal of football to clean up a tarnished international image. While the ownership attempts to balance this by claiming they are respectful of the club's long history and tradition, the overwhelming visual evidence and the sheer scale of investment makes the sports washing argument hard to refute. This is a PR exercise played out on the global stage. This brings us directly to the sporting consequences of this massive investment and image push. The ethics of buying success are not new. They follow the path forged by Manchester City following their Abu Dhabi takeover. A central issue for a club with an incredibly dedicated, historic fan base like Newcastle United is whether this sudden success will inevitably lead to them being labelled a plastic club. The fear is that the lure of winning will attract an influx of tourist fans who are only there for the glory and have no connection to the city or the club's heritage. If the St. James Park atmosphere begins to feel diluted or tickets become inaccessible to locals, that will be deeply problematic. The owners might welcome the increased global attention, but it will be a constant source of friction with the very soul of the Toon army. And if that success is truly just bought, how stable is it? Another serious financial concern for Newcastle United is the lack of a single, identifiable figurehead who can be held accountable if the investment ever stops. The PIF is a sovereign wealth fund, and the club's success is directly tied to the shifting, often opaque priorities of a state. This structure creates a significant long term risk. We have seen examples of what happens when a country's interest in football wanes. Wolves, for instance, saw their trajectory change drastically when Chinese investment cooled. Without a clear structure for financial sustainability that exists independent of state whims, things could go south quickly if Saudi Arabia decides to shift its focus away from football. The lack of corporate clarity is a silent threat to the club's future. Ultimately, the power to address all these issues, ethical, social, and financial, rests not with the fans, but with the league itself. This entire situation begs the question, should the Premier League be more stern with the money coming into the league? Historically, the league has operated under a hands-off, fit and proper person's test that focuses primarily on solvency, not on the ethical or governmental origins of the funds. This approach has led to the current dilemma where success is directly tied to regimes with appalling human rights records. The league must decide if it is truly a sporting competition or merely an investment opportunity for global actors. Implementing a more stringent, ethically based ownership test is the only way to safeguard the integrity of the competition and prevent football from becoming the ultimate vehicle for state-sponsored image laundering. So where does that leave us? I like Newcastle United as a club. I appreciate its history, the passion of the Tyneside faithful, and I genuinely find the Premier League more exciting with their renewed competitiveness. We have seen them achieve genuine remarkable success, competing in the Champions League, winning the League Cup, and consistently challenging at the top. On the sporting side, the club has been ruthlessly smart, buying genuinely world-class players like Isak, developing them, selling them on for exorbitant amounts of money, a reported £125 million to Liverpool, and then reinvesting brilliantly in new, exceptional talents like Nick Woltemade. The sight of St. James's Park rocking on a European night is something special, and the shrewd business model shows the club staff and manager are world class. However, that excitement, that success, and that shrewd business cannot and must not overshadow the alleged crimes of their ownership regime and their brazen attempts at sports washing. As fans, as commentators, and as people who love the sport, we must learn to hold two thoughts at once. We can applaud the success on the pitch while still loudly condemning the source of the money and demanding more ethical accountability from those who run this beautiful game.